Welcome to the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. I am your host, Alex Greene, and I'm on a mission to bring the power of embodiment to people all around the world. In this podcast, we explore how embodiment practices, trauma healing, and knowledge about the human nervous system can help us find our ground, discover new sources of meaning, and create connection in an ever-changing world. The deepest change is embodied change.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Alex. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, as per normal. And I'm here with my guest, Dr. Keith Motes in Koh Phangan, Thailand. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with Keith today. And
hello.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Motes is the founder of Shaking Medicine, a school for teaching about therapeutic use of neurogenic tremoring. So something near and dear to our heart here at Neurogenic Integration, of course. And he's done a lot of work. He has a fascinating personal story in terms of his initial discovery of neurogenic tremoring and therapeutic tremoring, and then very much in his evolution of teaching and continuing to explore the possibilities of this way of working with the mind, body, physiology, nervous system, all these good things. And Dr. Motes has a fascinating background as originally he has a PhD in quantum physics. And part of what I'd like to explore today is just, Keith, getting your thoughts on, how do you think of vibration and tremoring in the therapeutic use that we do? Does it connect to your work in physics in any way? This would be a theme that I hope to potentially explore with you. But in any case, I'm honored to sit down with you today, Keith, and really excited to kind of hear about your own journey.
Thank you so much. I am very pleased to be here. It's an honor to be on your show. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to share and talk all about therapeutic tremoring, spontaneous movement, and the effects that's had on my life, on people I've shared it with, and to get to know you better, Alex. Yeah, I'm excited. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah,
thank you so much.
We have a couple community in common through you've connected with Richmond Heath in Australia, with Gabriel in Australia. These are TRE colleagues of mine. I think you've met with Maria Alfaro in California.
Yeah.
So a few intersections. So I'm glad to have the chance for a conversation.
Yeah, quite a few intersections. Hey, it's nice to be meeting all of these wonderful people and to network, make friends and collaborations. And now with you, Alex, thank you. Yeah, beautiful.
So cool. Well, well, Keith, would you be willing to kind of, I guess I always like to start at the beginning a little bit, like, as in your formative years, you ended up studying physics. So I'm curious about that passion. And of course, I'm curious to how your passion widened. So maybe if you could just share.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I was studying physics in undergraduate. I really was quite natural at math and physics and interested in the sciences, wanted to understand the universe. It was a big passion of mine, and the only thing that made sense was physics in university for me at the time. So I said, why not? Let's do it. And that took me on quite the adventure through undergraduate, and then it took me to Australia. I'm from the United States, from Louisiana. So it took me out of America and into a whole nother country, which was pretty profound for me, I must say, in my young 20s to go over to, across the world to do a PhD in quantum physics, focused on quantum computing technologies. Yeah, it was an incredible life and experience. I got a scholarship. It was paid for completely, and they even put money in my bank account every 2 weeks to live on. So I was like really set up beautifully and put a lot of energy into it, published a bunch of papers, researched with so many cool people, made lots of friends, and did really well. I ended up getting a citizenship in Australia, so I'm now a dual citizen of the United States and the beautiful land of Australia. So during all of this time, I was beginning my spiritual practice of yoga, basically. It didn't start off super spiritual, but it got me into this kind of what I like to call this alternative kind of path that, alternative medicines and alternative practices, and really at first, the biggest part for me was breathing with movement, simply that. It was like, wow, just for that, yoga was super profound for me.
Mm,
And it led me into, deeper aspects of myself, meditation, Qigong, and ultimately, after quite a few years, I was plateauing from my yoga in the sense that, like, I didn't feel the growth that had gotten the first few years. It just kind of steadied off, even though I was still practicing. Um, and I realized later that, and this is part of what inspired me to do shaking medicine or to start this modality of shaking medicine, was I figured out how that essentially trauma, things, this kind of energy was holding me back. And that's why I was plateauing in my yoga practice, which I really feel doesn't tend to, especially in the westernized version, get into the deeper layers of the emotional body, the subconscious, the
mm,
trauma. Like it does a little bit, but
yeah.
it's not really the focus of, going to do yoga classes. So that's a bit about that journey, studying quantum physics, quantum
Mm,
computing technologies. I just felt after a while, after I did my first postdoc and finished my PhD, I was like burnt out a bit. It was so much work and a beautiful kind of work, but work nonetheless. And I was like, I need a break. I really want to break from academia and wanted to dive into my full spiritual path straight away, like just give it all of my time and energy,
yeah.
full time.
Yeah.
So, and here I am, like 8, 9 years later, still on that path and writing it beautifully. It's serving me well. I'm getting lots of beautiful support
Mm,
as well. The universe seems to encourage me to want to do this. So,
mm.
yeah.
I love that. At some point, in your diminishing returns, plateaued yoga practice, somehow you kind of woke up to shaking, vibration, spontaneous movement. And, personally, can you share a little bit about that? How you happened upon it, how it found you?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I was in the last couple months or so of finishing my PhD. Maybe it was like 3 or 4 months away, something like that. And I had a plant medicine experience that was really profound. It actually, in a big way, seeded a lot of what this is, and it seeded, I should say, my initial like openings into this realm, this spontaneous autogenic movement, the pandiculation, the tremoring. I didn't have words for it at first. It was just an experience where, like, my only reference at the time were exorcism movies I'd seen. You know, I was going through this experience, which was my first time on DMT in a very extended form that was like 8 hours. It was like an 8 hour experience with a bit of magic mushrooms involved.
Hmm.
And those really made it last a long time. Oh, yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but mushrooms have actually DMT in them, but we don't normally feel that aspect because we don't have the MAO inhibitor for our receptors in our brain to actually absorb them. But when you have that inhibitor, then all of a sudden you do feel it. And basically, it was unexpected how deep this journey was, really. My friends, I was doing it with one of them. He just thought, oh, it makes it a little bit stronger. But no, it was like 100 times stronger, and it was a whole another octave of experience. So it was, long story short, my it turned this thing, maybe let's call it the ego, this part of me that was like this control mechanism, the thinking mind, the ego, it just like put it all to sleep. It said, okay, hey, we're turning it off and nothing's going to remain but your primal instinctive mind. But it blessed me with the capacity to witness and feel everything that was happening. So it wasn't like I was gone. I was like witness to everything. My body it just went on this journey of unraveling, of moving in ways I've never moved before, squeezing and kind of twisting and shaking,
Hmm.
sounding. So sounds are coming out, vibrations, like resonances in my whole being, my whole body.
Hmm.
And then in the midst of all of it, I felt this trauma energy from when I was a little boy, just leaving, like a few waves of it. So lots of purging. In the midst of it, it's like, wow, like I'm having some kind of exorcism. But it felt amazing. Like it didn't feel like it was intense. Like that was a very intense experience. But overall, it felt just so good, so liberating. It was like a rebirth, I would say. That's how I felt the next day, just like a new being.
Hmm.
And this experience really, for me, sits at the seed of what inspired me to like go down this kind of path, um, to branch from the yoga into more somatics and to start teaching this trimming, which was at first very much like, okay, how do we combine it with yoga shapes that I already teach and know so well, simple yoga shapes, and get get it moving through the body, all parts of the body. Yeah, which by the way we explore without the medicines, like typically, like it's a modality that doesn't need that. And
Hmm.
so it can certainly in the right circumstances significantly complement the
Yeah, no,
anyone who's into that.
I hope we can,
That
yeah,
wants to do it training.
I hope we can talk a little bit about that because yeah, so first of all, yeah, thanks for sharing that powerful story. Um, and to me, this, similarly for me with TRE and neurogenic tremoring, and usually that's not in connection to medicine, psychedelics or medicine. However, there is so much going on with that as the field of psychedelic therapies expands and becomes more common. Where I live here in Boulder, my joke is that if you walk down the street, it doesn't matter if somebody's wearing a suit or they're an old lady or whoever. If you talk to anybody, 8 out of 10 of them, did a mushroom journey last weekend or something. Where the in some ways the proliferation of psychedelic use is to me is so high, at least in the people that I encounter. And in my view, a lot of people find their way to tremoring arising out of psychedelics. So I'm hoping that if we can include that as one of I'd like to sort of compare notes today a little bit on that topic, if it's fair
I'd love
game.
to.
Cool.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
dive
so
in.
all right, so but I've got a curiosity because so just you know when I for me too, the one thing I just want to share in common is when I first had a spontaneous tremoring experience, I think I told you when we met a few weeks ago, it wasn't with a plant medicine, but I was going through a Rolfing structural integration body work. And it was, which was kind of intense for me already. And I was young, 21, something like that. And during that experience, my body just flipped into this big discharge. And in some ways, similar to, as you described your experience, where suddenly just something took over at a primal level. There was sound, there was movement, there was heat, there were, the sort of, as I love your language, the sort of the waves of trauma energy, so, for lack of a more precise term, that my experience was like that too. And I also had 0 points of reference other than this is some wild exorcism that found its way to me. And so later on, it was when I found, TRE was the first thing I found where, hey, somebody has a little bit of an explanation about some of these processes, and which gave me a foot in the door to study. I knew that other people knew some things about spontaneous tremoring, which was helpful for me to kind of find that there were other people thinking. So what I'm curious for you is, after you had this super profound personal experience and then the clear idea that this was a seed that you were going to follow, I'm curious, like, how did you you've got a physics background, or did you study this? Did you research? What did you sort of do after you had this original experience that you then pursued?
So the first weeks, maybe months, it was sitting in my nervous system, affecting my life a little bit, of just like integrating this very deep experience. Yeah, so I'd say the first little while was like, okay, let me feel into this new life, this rebirth kind of thing. This, like, what was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I met this guy at a festival, and he was getting into this kind of spontaneous movement, and we hit it off really well, and we started a practice together, and we explored it and we developed it, and then after some time we had a falling apart. Unfortunately, I just felt like this guy was not really walking the talk, and got aggressive a few times with me, and just I was like, okay, I want to let this go. And then I just kind of I let I just kept doing what I was doing, and I yeah moved into like officializing it as this thing called shaking medicine. And yeah, I've been at first, I started teaching my acro yoga friends in the park after our acro yoga jam, which I'm doing a lot of here actually in Copenhagen. Every day there's acro yoga, and it's such a nice way to connect and get
Mm.
and play with people. So I'm really enjoying that way of playing. So yeah, I was teaching them, and it worked. Like, it was not working as well as it does now, but I was getting results and refining and experimenting. Started teaching it at yoga studios, at festivals, um, and of course kept embodying it within myself quite deeply,
Mm.
exploring it, just kind of like evolved. Eventually, people expressed that, hey, like, I want to share this as well. So then, like, okay, it evolved into teacher trainings and other courses. I was just like I just find myself, I just keep doing it. Like it's so interesting in what it brings up and how it impacts people. I'd say like at this point, every single day I'm seeing profound like shifts with people through this work basically through the body work. That's another one we need to talk about, the whole realm of body work with this, because
Yep, definitely.
yeah, and I'm just having these really beautiful sessions with people where we get very into the deep somatic layers where they're often like trembling to release and let go.
Mm.
So it just keeps getting more and more interesting, to be honest. So I keep
Cool.
following the threads and keep going.
But when you teach, I mean, I haven't gone through your course, but my sense is that you teach from a pretty experiential place that, it's no sense talking about this too much until we can kind of wake it up inside each of us. But for people you're introducing it to, I'm curious, like, how much do you talk about biological aspects of it? How much do you talk about sort of the psycho-spiritual components of it? How do you contextualize this for your students and
Mm,
audience?
I love that question. Well, one, I tune in with who I'm speaking to, like, and what their place, what their like, where they're at. Are they like a mainstream corporate worker, or are they like a yogi? So, you know, I try to be relational actually, and like, get to know people. And, there's many lenses we can look at this. And so what I like teach the teacher training per se, like we go deep into probably like 4 or 5 different lenses, from the scientific lens to the yogic, the Qigong, even indigenous and shamanic sort of lens. So, and there's definitely more, but yeah, after a while, like, a few lenses is plenty to look at for a training.
Yeah.
And I find that they all complement each other
Yep.
a lot. They're, you know, saying the same things for the same human bodies experience, but in different ways. Often that's how I see what's happening.
I love that.
For you regular listeners to the podcast, you know that about half of these episodes focus on TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises. And I wanted to make sure that you know about the Redbeard TRE certification program, our educational platform to certify others. And we have both an online version of that I teach, as well as an in-person version of the training that my colleague Ellen McKenzie teaches in Madison, Wisconsin. I wanted to make sure you know about the program. You can find more information at redbeardtre.com.
Without repeating your entire teacher training, which we don't have time for, but like with the indigenous or the shamanic or even the qigong lens, like I love those lenses, outside of the, sort of a Western neurobiological lens. Could you share just like, I don't know, one or two or three things that like from those lenses, the shamanic, the indigenous or qigong, that feel resonant for you,
Yeah.
that feel important? Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go with uh well, first of all, like this comes from nature. It evolved. So that's the oldest like place I see that this is found. It's evolved as a mechanism over a very long time in the nervous system of animals to bring us into self-regulation. Yeah, to bring us into homeostasis. And so more than anything, that's really the basis of this is this, and that's the scientific lens, you could say.
Yeah.
And then kind of the next level up are in the progression of the timeline of human history would be, say, like indigenous cultures, shamanistic culture, maybe you could even say biblical. this is important because these cultures are often very connected with nature and their body, and as a natural mechanism, they're often just tuned into it, and their cultures are supporting it from birth. And the most notable is from the work of Dr. Bradford Toomey, who's one of my biggest inspirations for this modality, especially early on. And he went and lived with the Indigenous Kalahari Bushmen, and they have this whole culture of shaking shamanism, where basically they become stronger shamans by how much embodied they are with this shape.
Mm.
And they have different levels where when they're first learning, they're getting the shape. It's like it's sporadic, it's moving and it's healing them. And then they talk about reaching a point where the energy of the shape centers into, let's say, let's start bringing in the Qigong lens, centers in the Dantian at the pit of the belly,
Mm.
this major energy, important energy center of Qigong practice.
Mm.
Basically, the Bushman's pump, I see that centers there, the shake at the pit of the belly.
Mm.
It centers, it pumps, and kind of continuing on the Qigong lens, what I see is it goes into that nerve plexus there at the pit of the belly, into the spine, so the energy of the shake goes into the spine, up and down the spinal cord into the brain, and starts nourishing us from deeply from the inside out. And this is when in the Indigenous, in the Kalahari Bushman culture, they start to become a shaker that can support others with the shake, which I think is really beautiful. And then as they keep progressing, they talk about dancing with the spirits, and starts getting really spiritual and like um yeah, cosmic. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
basically, I see that as they're raising the energy of the spirit. And Qigong talks about the spirit as well, the Shin. Yeah, so I think Qigong is one of the best kind of embodiment energy science for working with the energy that the shape and starts to cultivate within yourself. And because Qigong is kind of the art of grounding and working with this subtle Qi bottle,
Mm.
how to breathe, move. So I recommend anyone who wants to really go deep with moving this, like Qigong is a beautiful complement
Mm.
to embodying it. I could go on and on. Like I find myself wanting now to go into the yoga cleanse a bit.
Yeah, no, that would be
This is
great.
a
Yeah. No, that what you just shared was so interesting. Yeah, no, yeah, please bring
uh,
in the yoga cleanse.
well, there's a common thing in yoga. They talk about Kundalini, right? And this is a sort of you could say mystical energy, maybe, that the yogis talk about awakens at the root of the spine, and it's, some people call it Shakti, that divine kind of feminine energy that once it starts moving, it goes up the spine and travels through really the nervous system, the energy channels.
Right.
And I see shaking medicine as a very potent way to wake this up, because it's our natural state, really. Once we get the blockages out of the way, this primal life force starts to awaken. And really, this is a yin way to awaken this thing called Kundalini, whereas traditional Kundalini yoga is often a bit forceful, a little bit yang, I find.
Mm.
So it's a nice way to work with this feminine essence and waking it up in what I see to be a much more gentle, feminine way, from letting go of control and deep surrender, relaxation.
Mm.
um, and to stop controlling everything, essentially, to relax, like yeah, to get out of this. It's an illusion anyway to even think we're in control in the first place. So we might as well just let it go.
May as well let it pass. Yeah. Yeah. So cool. No, very, I love hearing that, those articulations. Really appreciate that.
These days, I talk about it so much, I start to merge
Yeah.
sometimes I interchange the descriptions a bit,
Yeah, that's perfect.
but they work together.
Yeah. So okay, so then that brings me to another curiosity, because in, this general field of alternative medicine, healing, things like that, something that's common is that people will invoke the field of quantum physics by way of analogy. People who are non-physicists will frequently borrow on concepts, ideas, sometimes perhaps well, sometimes perhaps, it's a little bit like the idea of cultural appropriation, but maybe it's scientific appropriation. But I'm curious for you, who is a physicist, does the lens of physics, whether that be through resonance, vibration, does the lens of physics or quantum physics, does it, how, if at all, does it play into your thinking, your wondering, your curiosities around these processes?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's affected the way I think about the world, about the universe, solving complex math and quantum physics puzzles and problems that get into all sorts of counterintuitive concepts like quantum entanglement and superposition, and working in a realm that's very abstract, let's say. And the way that it's kind of coming to me now, actually, the way that this really has affected the way that shaking medicine has evolved, or let's say my personal embodiment practice, how I work with this kind of energy, I see it as helpful in the sense that when we embody therapeutic tremoring, or really embody the deep capacity that we have within ourselves, there's really infinite possibilities. So, in a way is an abstract concept itself, this idea of infinity. So when I'm embodying, I really feel that there's infinite ways to move, there's infinite ways for the tremoring or if as it evolves into Kundalini, or the, more types of Qigong practice, it it's helpful to have this kind of, I guess, mindset of superposition, of like, oh, this and this, and then bringing that into a spiritual, connecting spiritually. We might get into concepts like duality, really, that in life. Paradox is a big one for me that comes up. Often paradoxes show up in life, and usually there's a lot of gold to go look at the paradox, because there might be one part of us that's like, yeah, let's do that. Another part that's like, no, don't do that. So then there's this kind of superposition of realities where something's not aligned or integrated, and we're battling with ourselves. So looking at these paradoxes and trying to do more so myself these lately. And often when I just look at it and breathe into it, I'm like, oh, it just kind of fades away, it melts. Vibration, that's a big one. So the simple answer is vibration. Everything is vibration to the atomic level. The photons are vibrating. Everything we're made of is pulsing, essentially shaking, we could say. Everything is shaking.
Mm.
And so too can our bodies shake on this macroscopic way. And perhaps, as you get super sensitive to it, it starts to feel more microscopic or quantum,
Mm.
deep on the inside and in the consciousness, because this work affects the subconscious mind, the nervous system. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So cool to hear those reflections. Something I
Does that
think
kind of make sense?
it does. Well, something I think about sometimes is, so, my, kind of lean back into my Zen training, and in our Zen training uses a fairly similar, kind of uses the Qigong sort of, and Taoist kind of philosophy, but especially this idea about kind of microcosm and macrocosm. So something I think about sometimes is, we engage here at the body. We could think of our individual human body as the microcosm, but in Taoist thinking, and the sort of like, what's the relationship between the individual and the universe or the cosmos? And I sort of wonder if one of my, I guess, ways that I experience and hold tremoring and vibration is that I'm tapping into the nature within me, which, I am nature inside, but I often find that it connects me to something that feels, sort of more whole or bigger. And I find this is especially true if I'm doing my practice and maybe I'm in a natural setting where it's easier for me to feel the larger sort of natural field around me, at the level of the trees and the mountains and the land, but beyond that as well. So personally speaking, I think of my tremoring practice as something that connects me deeply inside, but that it somehow also connects me to the greater field of experience as well. So that's like one way that I hold it a little bit. And I don't know, maybe
Mm,
curious if you think in those terms at all, or.
I love that. I deeply resonate actually with that. I guess my interpretation or what that's bringing up in me right now is that when I am tremoring, one way to go about it is to think, okay, we're centering ourselves, like so Qigong helps center and align. And it's like if there's any density or tension or charge in my system that's pulling me out of center, then I can, by relaxing, let that tremor away as my nervous system comes deeper and deeper into center.
Mm.
And the centering is essentially merging with all that is as it is, the universe, ourselves, the ground beneath us. And that merging is it's like allowing our vibration to become like communicate, maybe that's a good word, with the environment around us and be transparent. Yeah, so this kind of merging or dissolving is one way to look at it. Ideally, the mind is at rest.
Mm.
There's not thinking, it's just this stillness, this a meditative state essentially, which this often gets people into spontaneous states of meditation because after a bunch of release, it's like often like the deep stillness. The Kalahari Bushmen talk a lot about this. The process has lots of waves and cycles where we'll go into like ecstatic like releases to deep like states of stillness.
Mm.
Um, Everything in between to expressing emotions,
Mm.
crying, screaming, pendiculating, all kinds of beautiful things, which moves that trauma energy, the anxiety, it moves the trapped emotions, which I'm seeing more and more. It just feels like these things are really the underlying cause of so many of our problems. It's not the it's well, I don't want to say it's not anything particularly, but it's often this like stuck emotional energy that needs to be like
Mhm.
let go of to
Yeah, yeah.
calm the nervous system.
Felt and moved, expressed, acknowledged. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
Ah,
Well, let's talk about the psychedelic connection a little bit, if you're
yeah, yeah,
game
yeah.
for it. And I'll just maybe
What are your
I'll
thoughts?
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, what I'll share is context first, which is so sort of maybe two pieces of context. So one is it's pretty, in the, let's see, 12 years that I've, sort of offered tremoring and TRE as sort of as one of the tools, in addition to body work and somatic experiencing and things. I would say um, quite a few people, people they hear about tremoring or TRE various ways. Sometimes they hear about it because it's through the connection of trauma. Sometimes they hear about it. It's good for anxiety reduction. Sometimes they hear about it for it's improved their friend's sleep, whatever it is. But I would say a pretty common thing is that somebody has done, maybe it's been their first, or just they've done a psychedelic journey. Maybe that was psilocybin, maybe that was MDMA. I guess not technically a psychedelic, but a entheogen or whatever. But some medicine work where part of their experience was spontaneous tremoring. And sometimes in the clients that I've held, sometimes that tremoring that's woken up via their psychedelic could be ayahuasca, could be whatever. In my experience, it's been with many medicines. And now tremoring is happening in their body. They may also be tapping into other kinds of emotional work, discharge, trauma layers sometimes, or sometimes it's only physical. But it's as though it's woken up a tremoring somatic process. And now they're wanting to integrate it and work with it not only during medicine work. So I've supported a lot of people coming where psychedelic or medicine work is what stimulated it. Now it's alive in their system. And so now, naturally speaking, they're looking for, what do I do with this, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of one thing. And so I was curious about your thoughts there. But then I'll just say my other piece now, which is then the opposite. People who already are tremorers, and now they want to see, is they're getting interested in medicine work. And because they're already a tremorer, naturally speaking, it shows up during their journeys. Again, ayahuasca, MDMA, whatever it is. And ketamine, many of them are saying, this is wonderful. I'm so glad I know how to let my body express. I'm so glad I have this practice, because now I go into my medicine work, I know exactly what to do. I can follow that. And sometimes it opens up new areas of my tremoring, brings me to new that wasn't happening when I wasn't doing my medicine work. So it's as though the medicine work is sometimes amplifying people who already have a shaking medicine or tremoring type of a practice. So I've kind of seen it in both of these directions. And in my view, there's a really important linkage. And so yeah, what are you seeing and hearing, and what are you thinking about this intersection?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've had quite similar experiences as you, first of all, in both those regards that people often find it for the first time on a journey, like I did. And so that's very much that's not uncommon, let's say. In this regard, there's a couple things that I see that people either they like me, they were able to intuitively like allow it and trust that it was a good thing, or they get scared of it and they contract and it actually takes away from the experience because they don't know what it is. So particularly for those people that, get frightened of it, which is the cultural conditioning of our society for a long time around this trauma. So it's understandable that anyone feels afraid or scared of what's happening. So I see plant medicine and shaking medicine or any therapeutic tremoring practice or any really autogenic movement or somatic modality. This sort of realm of practices, let's say, is very complementary to the plant medicine experience because they're about, like shaking medicine, for example, is about letting go of control, which is what really the medicines do. I'd say that's their primary role. It's like in particularly psychedelics, let's say. That's my main experience. I'm not so experienced with the other ones you mentioned, but I'd say these really get people to, in their minds, to start to, for the ego. It's like a medicine for the ego is a good way to look at it. It shows us what's alive, what's present, what needs to be shifted. It can be inspiring to inspire us with creativity. It's just so much. It gets this control mechanism to just surrender and move into presence and feeling. So shaking medicine, I tell people this regularly. I feel like it's one of the best possible ways to prepare for a psychedelic journey if you are planning to do it. Because just as you said, so often when people are embodied in this, especially if they know about it before, they can soften into it during the journey. And many people have told me that their favorite part about their journey was just being able to lie there and tremor and instinctively move for hours or however long, you know.
Mm,
So those are some of my thoughts.
mm.
Very important fusion to anyone. I feel anyone doing plant medicine work needs to be, yeah, at least aware of this, educated of what this is, if not. And I'd even say like they should be working with this together probably because it's so complementary. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one client in particular who is kind of doing some long-term trauma work, complex trauma stuff from childhood, working from many different angles, doing EMDR therapy, doing a regular tremor person, somatic experiencing work, and but also psychedelic work has been a major component of his ongoing healing process. And most recently, and I mean, I've been working with this person for 4 or 5 years, and with a lot of success, non-medicine based. And recently, in some of his personal MDMA work, he was able to both at the conscious level, at the mind level, but also at the body. It was interestingly, it was the body that led him to this. His body went through a certain set of movements, vibrations, and other kinds of movements that led him much closer. It's like his body was telling the story, and it led him much closer to the kind of the original incident, one of the early primary, traumatic incidents that he hadn't had a lot of conscious access to because it was very young and quite traumatic,
Mm.
therefore, kind of dissociated from. So, but his MDMA work, and again, he's been tremoring for 4 or 5 years. By letting his body lead the way, he then got into a much clearer awareness of the original context from an embodied perspective, but in a way that he felt safe enough to be there, not
Mm.
wasn't overwhelming, and quite integrating. And so then in our work afterwards, a lot of it is around integrating, what he learned and remembered was could be integrated in other ways. But to me, this was such a clear example of where, in my view, in a sense, I believe he, in a sense, needed both of these things. He needed to trust his tremoring. The MDMA for him really facilitated him being able to follow it with less fear, and then end up doing a piece of very delicate trauma work that I'm, there maybe have other routes to get into this, but this was a really successful example in my experience. So just kind of thinking about,
Oh my
these kinds
God, yeah. That's like I see that it's like people who struggle to get the tremor mechanism, it can definitely work that way of the medicines can be combined to help them embody this as well, like through a, guided session. And actually just the other day I worked with someone, I guess I'm blessed to be in a place where these things are legal. And he had a little bit of, we did a session, a bodywork session, a Zentai Shiatsu shaking medicine trauma release sort of session. And he had his first journey of mushrooms, his first ever experience, a little bit, not a lot, but and a lot of the session, what ended up being him tremoring just through presence, touching points and breathing, and it was just going deep into release. And he'd never accessed that before. It wasn't through words, it was through intention and presence and touch and energy and a little bit of magic mushrooms to help him let go. And he let go in a big way and cried and just had an amazing release. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be very interesting to follow this. Well, that's a good, you're giving us a good transition, because I thought it would be fun to talk about body work too. And so that was, I
Yeah.
love what you just shared. I love what you just shared, because there was shaking medicine, there was medicine, a plant medicine, mushrooms in this case, and touch work, body work, facilitation. And that's a big passion of mine, because my original therapeutic work is as a hands-on body worker, doing structural integration, body work, and then other things, myofascial release, energy type touch, zero balancing, things like that. And so when I first found TRE, tremoring, it's because I would so frequently see my clients, and like had happened to me, when I told you in my original story, that not every session, not every time, but sometimes I'd be working with people and I'd see a little bit of vibration, or sometimes a lot of vibration and discharge. And so as a bodywork therapist, it always seemed important to me that, geez, if you're going to be touching people, you should know what this vibration is. Not only know what it is, you may want to know how to facilitate it. What do you do when that arises? How do you support it? So that's kind of been a thing of mine. And I've evolved, I now do some teaching specifically to body workers, where seminars where I teach them about tremoring, what to know about it, how to be a little bit safe with it, but especially how to use the skills they already have as a bodywork touch therapist to support and provide a container that facilitates and supports the unfolding of a neurogenic tremoring. And it sounds like you've been really diving into the Zentai Shiatsu.
Zentai Shiatsu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts and compare notes around what's different, or what are the benefits of having two people touch involved and with people's tremoring or autogenic movement. I'd love to hear what you're discovering with that.
Oh man, so much. I'm discovering such a rich tapestry of possibilities. Finding that it's people to be held in such a way that their nervous system can do that release, it's ultra powerful for say a therapist, a body worker to be able to sense when someone's like at this precipice of their body wanting to like literally crack open through the quaking is profound. And actually your job as a body worker all of a sudden gets effortless. Like it's easy because all you're doing is listening to the how their nervous system wants to unravel. And we can do that from our center. So like this effortless action of Wu Wei, of doing that. So listening to this, being able to find this is really, really potent. Probably the most potent probably aspect. Like when we get to these places, we're getting deep, right? Like, you know, Thai massage is it's kind of more physical body stuff, you know, working with the muscles, the fascia. It gets deep. Mini massage, you know, it's working the that physical layer, but when we can go deeper into the energetics and then the charges of the emotions and the trauma and actually like feel that and hold space for that in people, then we facilitate them to transform it. We hold space for that to happen. But that can only happen, the way I see it anyway, is if we're embodied with it. Like it's, I feel like, first of all, this is quite an intuitive medicine that's learned best through embodying it, right? So it's developing our felt sense intelligence. So to work with the body, it's like some step-by-step video isn't, I don't feel is going to really get you to feel what I'm talking about, the charges in the body, the vibrational energy, everything's vibration.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to quantum. So if you are a body worker out there looking to get this, first step is to, if you aren't already, embody it yourself. Like you can't,
Yeah.
I don't think you're really going to sense that in people if you haven't sensed it in yourself, right?
Right.
It's very important. And a lot of it is intuitive. Like I've been doing it, I don't know, like a year or something. And I gave one of my friends a big hug one day and I just like, whoa, I felt her charges, the trauma energy. Is like, whoa, what is that? And then I realized I could hold her, and then when I realized what it was, I could hold that, breathe, and then she like dissolved onto the ground into this like deep state of letting go. And so it'll definitely happen by embodying it. You'll start to feel it in others. And that's not to say, like, of course, we can teach things that could get you going and stuff. So that's definitely possible as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
embodying it.
Well, yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I love a few things. I liked your comment, when you can sense when somebody's at the precipice of something starting to move or flow. And I agree. I mean, to me, what was so exciting to me in my early couple years when I first got into bodywork passionately, you know, 15, 18 years ago, something like that. It's like I learned over a couple of years, it gave me a tangible practice where I could confirm everything I had ever learned about, sort of energy flows and what we can sense and feel. It's like it gave me a very practical setting where you spend enough time hands-on with bodies where you're in an attuned state to yourself, to the person that you're with. If you're staying open and listening, I think anybody will discover, wow, there is so much that we can sense and feel in terms of the interaction between this person's energy body, for lack of a better term, or their nervous system, and your own breath, your own presence, and the dynamic exchange between this organism and this organism coming together. So to me, there's almost a limitless amount of sensitivity that can start to emerge if you're open to it, if you're looking for that. And so I totally agree with this richness, but I'll say one other thing. This might be something about my personality, is that I'm also like a little bit impatient sometimes. And so something that I loved, and this is kind of going back to when I first found TRE as a method, something that I was so excited about was sometimes I would have clients come to me as a body worker, and the term I would use would be a cold body. And what I meant was, this person's not very awake yet to their own sensations. They don't yet have a lot of sensation for themselves. They don't feel themselves. They don't have a strong connection to how they sense emotions in the body. And to me, as a body worker, I could sort of sense that when somebody, they didn't have a yoga practice, or they hadn't done something to wake up their mind body connection for themselves yet. And so for me, in my early days doing 10 session series body work, I would get people who have a cold body, and I loved working with people with a warm or body where everything was already connected and woken up. But it was a challenge working with cold bodies. So something that I started to lean into was that if I showed them just the basics of using the TRE format, just a butterfly position, if I could show them how to stimulate a vibration and a neurogenic tremor, one, that might open up, that would give our sessions more life, because they're now, so even though it's sort of in a sense an artificially inducing it, not waiting for it to emerge organically, but using the TRE process to get it going, it's like that could make things, accelerate things a little bit. And then I would tell them, please start to do this on your own a couple times a week, play with this a little bit. And what this really helped for this impatient side of me was that it was like that started to do some of the work of waking them up to their bodies. And then my work doing the Rolfing structural integration, everything happened more quickly, more easily, because it was speeding up the process of them connecting into their bodies and their nervous system. So even though I love this idea of like purely just allowing, I sometimes bring in the artificial catalyst of, let's get this thing cooking a little bit and see what that does for you.
I think, yeah, that's beautiful. I like when I go into the therapeutic tremoring part of my class or any autogenic movement, I see it, there's different phases of exploring, we can have fun, we get creative, and I see this kickstarting it, as you say. It's like having a strategy or a way of starting to feel what the sensations in the body are that say, hey, something wants to shake here.
Mm.
And lately I've been more leaning towards just calling them games, because they're in and of itself, it's not
The thing.
the thing, but it's a good thing to help get to the thing. It's like not to get attached to the thing. And we can play other games too. We don't have to be attached to one game.
Yeah.
And then once we find the tremoring in some ways with some games, I like to be playful, keep it lighthearted mostly. And we go into the surrender phase where it's like, okay, let's call it a shaken station, and I'm gonna just let go of the game now and just hang out. Let it move us, make sounds,
Yeah.
move us how it wants to, go into the surrendering to it. And we might dance back and forth between those.
Mm.
But I think it's a good teacher will use intelligent games to kickstart the process for sure, and bring people on a journey, and yeah, I think that's important for sure.
That's so cool. Well, Keith, what have we missed? What is there, any other angle, anything else you want to share? What would help you feel complete for our conversation?
Well, I loved how we just naturally flowed into I think all the things we mentioned we wanted to speak to. So what else would there be? Well, I'd like to share that this is a powerful way to bring us into, I like to call it animalistic homeostasis, where the whole point of the mechanism is that it's the way animals in nature, and we're animals, according to science. We are animals that can vibrate our way back to balance and harmony or homeostasis. And yeah, this is a powerful way to do it. And what's unique about this kind of work is it's fundamentally about letting go of control and allowing and surrendering to something within us. And this is unlike a lot of stuff out there. Not nothing, but a lot of stuff out there we're controlling in some way. Even our yoga practice, let's say, that's always a good example. We're controlling the mind, the body, the breath, which has its place. It's important. It just needs to be balanced. Like everything in life, it's really about striking the right balance, I feel. So balance with letting go of control. It's a trust that actually your nervous system is super intelligent, your instinctive mind, super intelligent. It knows from nature how to vibrate you back to peace and harmony and move a lot of the problems that are so common in our society, stemming from stress, anxiety, suppressed emotions, trauma, this sort of thing. And also, as the body clears, this stuff isn't just about letting go of all that ickiness. It's about cultivating our fullest human potential. It's about awakening that Kundalini.
Mm.
And when the path, the path's clear and the energy comes to this state of balance and harmony, more energy to do the things we love happens. We access like more states of love is a good way to look at it. People here have been asking me, what am I doing? Because this stuff has infiltrated all aspects of my life. Like it doesn't matter what I'm doing, it shines through in some way or another, the deep somatic work. So this affects all of life, really. And anytime we're closer to homeostasis, life is just better.
Yeah.
So we've been calling it, I've been telling people it's like a giant love orgasm. Like it's like, sure, like if just, I believe this unity, this merging with the universe it might as well just be the vibrational field of love, and so it's sort of emerging into a state of being this love energy. So yeah, yeah.
Mm. Well, so yeah, so powerful to hear your journey, but your reflections. I love how you share and yeah, articulate and hearing your descriptions. So
No,
enriching for me to have this conversation.
me too. Thank you, Alex. Wow, I've had a really good time sharing and chatting and discussing. Thank you again so much for having me on your podcast. And oh, it's incredible getting to know you. I want to get to know you more
Very
and
cool.
keep the conversation alive.
Well, let's make sure that happens. Well, and for the listeners, we haven't set a date yet, but I've Keith has agreed to come to do an online workshop for our neurogenic integration, member community thing. So we haven't set the dates, but at a minute, but we'll at least get him once, maybe more than once. We'll see where things go. But so yeah, but Keith, no, so glad to have made this connection, hear your story, and I hope that there's plenty more to follow.
It's a pleasure and honor to share, and I can't wait to share an embodiment journey with you all. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. To learn more, visit us at redbeardsomatictherapy.com or send me an email at alex@redbeardsomatictherapy.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, help spread the word by subscribing and sharing with others. Hope to see you next time.